Today's video is going to show you a bunch of neat tricks using CSS custom properties, Sass maps, and more in order to create a CSS color picker. It's going to be using a bit of JavaScript, but only a teeny tiny little bit. So let's start. We're going to have a custom property, saturation, which we set to 100 initially, and the same way, a lightness, 50, and a background, and this is going to be a linear gradient, which goes from left to right, so that's 90 degrees. And then we're going to have a bunch of HSL values. So we're going to have a 0 hue, and then for the saturation, we're going to use the value we have, but that's unitless. So we're going to multiply it with 1% because we need percent values. And in the same way, we're going to do the lightness. So for the lightness, we're going to have the same thing, except we replace S with L. And now we take all of this and we copy paste it. And then we copy paste everything again and again. So now we're going to have 90, 180, 270, and 0 is the same thing as 360. And this does what we want. We get a rainbow, but it's inefficient. So let's automatically generate this. And we're going to have a list, a Sass list, which is initially empty. And we're going to use a precision of 12, which this is high enough so that our strip from 0 to 360 is nice and accurate, but at the same time, it doesn't produce too much generated CSS, too much, more than we actually need, more than our eyes can see in terms of accuracy. So for I from 0 through precision, we're going to keep adding such HSL values. So we have the new value of this stop list, which is the previous value of the stop list, to which we add an HSL value, and this is going to be I times 360 over P. So this can replace everything here, our stop list. So this looks really nice now, but we don't want this on the body. We want this on an input because, as I've said before, this is going to be for a color picker. So we have a range input, so type is range, and the maximum is going to be 360, sorry about the kids. Value, the current value is going to be 100, and we're going to have two more. This one is going to be the saturation, and the maximum is going to be 100. So the value here is going to be 0. And here we don't have the maximum because it's the same as the default, 100. And here we have the lightness. And here the value is going to be 50, which is the same as the default. So we take this one out too. And also, let's add some labels. So label, and we take the IDs, so for the previous IDs, and we have saturation, and lightness. Okay, now that we've done this, let's add a bit of label styling so that we have font size 2n so that we can see stuff better. And let's create the input, and it's on the input that we're actually going to be styling this. So set this, and this doesn't work in WebKit browsers because it needs WebKit. Actually, it doesn't work in any browser. It doesn't work in WebKit browsers because of this appearance thing. I need to set WebKit appearance none before, and it doesn't work in other browsers because of this calc inside HSL. And really sorry about the kid, sorry. Okay, and now something that I can do is take this out and use a custom property here. And I'm going to have a stop list which is going to be a custom property that I set here to my Sass one. And here, what I can do is, if the ID is S for the saturation, then I can have something a bit different. I'm going to have this. So I take this out from here and I use the hue, which I believe I haven't set, so let's fix that. So it's 0. Okay, this is awful. So this is the value that I set to the stop list. So this is going to be 100. And now I can do the same thing for the lightness. And I do it this way, and I go all the way to the end and I add this there. But since I'm going directly from black to white, I don't have any indication of what the hue might be, so I need to set an intermediate one at 50%. Now this does what we wanted, and to see things better, let's set display flex, and also flex, and we go by column. So this should look better. Okay, and it does. Okay, now for a bit of JavaScript, and I promise you this is going to be all of the JavaScript. So on input, I'm going to do this. I'm going to set a constant, and this constant is going to be the target, the event target. And if this target has an ID and this target ID matches HSL, then in this case I'm going to set a custom property whose name is the same as this ID on the body. So document body style set property. So I'm going to have custom property, so it starts with dash dash, and then I interpolate the target ID and I set it to the target value. And doing this should, look at it, it changes everything here, which is really cool. Now this does what we wanted, but it looks ugly because we have all this repetition here, HSL, HSL. So we're going to delete all of this and make everything a lot more compact. So what we do here is delete everything here and create an input map. And inside this input map, we define settings for the hue, the saturation, and the lightness. So for the hue, we have an initial value which is 0. We have a unit which is 1. We have a maximum which is 360. We have a precision which is 12, as we've set it before. And now for the saturation, we have the initial value is 100. The unit is 1%, the maximum is 100, and the precision is 1. And now I copy paste this for the lightness, and in this case the initial value is 50, the unit and the maximum are the same, and the precision I needed 2 in this case. So now I delete all of these, and I'm also going to create a stop map which is empty initially, and here I'm going to go through all of these lightness, saturation, hue, saturation, and lightness. So for each key value pair in input, I'm going to have something like this. I'm going to set a custom property before anything else. So I interpolate dash dash, and then I interpolate k, and I set it to map get the initial value, so in, and this should work in that it should create those custom properties on the body HSL, and it does, as you can see there. Now the next thing I'm going to do something at root, and dashes do strange things to alignment here on CodePen. So id equals, I need to interpolate k here, and I set the stop list, the custom property, I set it to map get the stop map, and I use the k key. Now in doing this, I need first to get to the stop map, so I need to create a stop map, and I create it from its previous version, so I use map merge. Really sorry about the kid. So here I'm going to have a second one which uses the k key, and the value is going to be the current list of HSL colors. So it's going to be the current list, which is going to be empty initially. So I'm going to use it here, that current list, and I need to populate that list. And in order to populate this, I need to have another loop for I from 0 through the precision, and I get the precision with map get value, and I use the p key for the precision. Actually, I'm going to use this more than once, so I set it to this, okay, p. And here I'm going to keep adding to this current list of HSL values. So I have, it's going to be the old version of this list of HSL values plus another HSL value, and here I create the list of arguments for this HSL value, and it's initially empty, but I'm going to be able to use it here, but I need to destructure it, and I populate this list of arguments within a loop. So no, it's going to be another each loop, so for each key value pair, and these are going to be different in input. They might happen to be equal, but okay, now I need to add to this arguments list. So I'm doing this, so I have the old one to which I append, so append, make this multi-line because it's going to be better probably. So the old version of the argument list, and here I need another component for the HSL. So if the keys are equal, so if k equals k1, then I'm looping along this. So I'm going to have I times map get. It doesn't matter whether it's v or v1, they are the same in this case. So this is going to be the maximum, and here I'm also going to get the unit because I'm going to use it more than once. So map get v1, the key is the unit in this case, and here I'm going to multiply by this unit, and I'm going to divide by the precision p. And if they're different, if the keys are different, if k different from k1, I'm going to use the value I already have. So that's calc, and I need to multiply it with the unit. So I need to interpolate the unit because it's Sass. And here again I need to interpolate, so the dashes, and then I need to interpolate k1. Okay, so this seems to have worked. Okay, so yeah, this works. It got the job done. And something else I want here is to see the values, and I can add them to the label, to the after element. So I'm going to do that, plus after pseudo element, and here I'm going to have content. And it would be really, really cool if this worked, but it doesn't. So this is nasty, but that's how things are. So this is going to be k, not k1, and sadly it doesn't work. But we can get around this by using counters. So we set counter reset, and we need to interpolate key in this case. Okay, and here we're going to use the counter and this should work. And you see that if I drag, this works just nicely. Okay, now that I've done this, okay, now I should do something about the sizing and about the output. So in order to do something about the sizing and the output, let's set a dummy height 2 n's, and let's set a background which is going to be an HSL value, which is going to be calc. Gosh, I hate writing this stuff. Here, and this repeats for the others, except here I also need to multiply with 1% with the saturation, and the same thing is going to be valid for the lightness. So lightness here, and for some reason this didn't work. Don't I have the output? No. So now I have that output element. Okay, now let's work on the sizing. I'm going to set a track width, and I'm going to make this a map. So it's going to have a minimum, which let's say it's going to be 8 ems. It's going to have a regular value, which we'll set it to 80 viewport minimum units, and it's going to have a maximum 35 ems. And now we're going to use this to create another mixin. Actually, our first mixin limit. So we're going to have a property list, we're going to have a factor list, and we're going to have a value list. And this value list is going to be this track width. And we add a comma at the end so that we signal that all of this is just one value. It doesn't take each component as a separate value. And this factor list is going to be a list of multipliers. Again, it's going to have just a 1 inside it, and this is going to have just one property, width, at the beginning. So I read the lengths, and I'm going to have for the first one the property list, and I do the exact same thing for the other two, and I just need to change and then I need to loop for I from 0 to the number of properties, and I'm going to have for each key value pair in the value list at index I plus 1, but it's not exactly I plus 1 because the lengths can be different, so I need to do a modulo n plus 1. So this is going to be it, and here I need to set a property name. I need to create it because I'm going to have a min max prefix, but I'm not going to have a prefix for the regular value. So if the key equals val, then I'm not going to have a prefix. Otherwise, I'm going to use the key and dash, and I'm going to add that to the property in the property list at index I plus 1. So yeah, and then I'm going to set the property with this property name to the factor in the factor list at index. It would be I plus 1, but since the lengths can be different, it's going to be modulo n nf, and this is going to be times the value. So if we include the limit here for the input, so it's going to be include limit. So this should work just fine, and we can do the same thing for the output and get rid of the dummy height. And in this case, we're going to have both width and height, and height. And as far as the factors go, we're going to have 0.65 and a 0.31. Okay, this should work fine. Okay, now the next thing we want to do, let's set a nice border radius so it doesn't look so sudden at the corners. So 5 pixels, and let's set also a base color somewhere here. So base color, and it's going to be dim gray initially, and let's set a low light, which is going to be HSL, and it's going to use the hue, but only that. It's going to use 85 saturation, 35 lightness, and let's also tweak the font a bit. 1M, 2. Okay, this looks nicer. And let's also do something like align items center. Okay, now this worked. And the next thing that we're going to do is set all of this stuff on the track, not on the input. And here we're going to have a transparent background, and we explicitly set it to transparent because it's inconsistent across browsers, which reminds me of font inherit, again because it's inconsistent across browsers. So we're going to create another mixin here after the limit, mixin track, and inside it we're going to have this, and we need to include this. But before we do it, we need to set this, and I hate writing this because it's so long. Slider runnable track. I hate writing this, so long. So I need to set the track mixin on this thing. So in this, include track. So this should have worked. And now let's set a height for this, for the track. Track height 0.75 ends, and let's set a thumb diameter, which is going to be 2.5 times track height. So let's set a height here, height, track height, and let's duplicate this and set a border radius. And let's also set a border none, because this, again, it's inconsistent across browsers. So we have this mixin, and let's create another one for the thumb. And this is going to be D. And need to set this as well. This is going to be 50%, and the background, let's set it to something like Gainsborough. Okay, so now that I've done this, let's do it for the thumb as well, but I need to also include that here. So this is going to be thumb. So again, thumb, and here I need to get rid of the runnable thing. Okay, and I also need to set a margin top, and this is a WebKit thing where I need to set this margin here, 0.5 times track height minus thumb diameter. Okay, so this puts it in the middle, and I need to do something about the focus. And this is going to have no outline, outline none, but I'm going to do something different here. I'm going to set color to the base color, and both for this and for the label, I'm going to set the base color, I'm going to set it to the low light. And I'm also going to do font weight. So whenever I focus on one of these things, yeah, let's also set a box shadow here. Box shadow 0, 1 pixel, 3 pixels, 1 pixel, and I'm going to use the base color. So this also changes when I change this kind of stuff. And I'm going to do one more thing here, and that's it for the input and the output. So not having a for attribute, which only the labels have, I'm going to also set the margin top. And that's it. I'm not going to do anything else on the styling because I'm not good at prettifying. You're probably better, so I'd just be wasting time. So yeah, I hope you've enjoyed this video, and this is it for today. Until next time.